Well, pretty much all of you know my love of poetry, so it's a really special time for me when I can bring somebody on this show in Author's Corner who has compiled thoughts and poems over the years. So this is somebody who's thought about this and actually went out there, did a book about it, and one that is so impactful. Carol Kappas is with us, and she's the author of the book, To Hear Your Voice, Written Verse of the 21st Century, Inspirational and Motivational. And it certainly is that. And this is really an incredible collection in her life of poetry and verse that she accumulated. Carol, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and for having me, Kate.
So let's talk about that. When did you start collecting these poems and these thoughts and these pieces and putting them together?
These poems I started writing after my high school years, and then I wrote it when the words came into my mind. I just wrote it on a piece of paper, and then I filed it. Sometimes I used a typewriter, written it down and filed it. And so that was the beginning of the creation of my verses. And when I was in high school, I knew I was a writer because I took creative writing. So I knew that talent was always there in me.
Wow. And now, I mean, here it is. Fast forward to you have the book out and you have a voice. So, you say to hear your voice, and that's what you want people to certainly think about when they're reading this. And when you put this together and you thought about that, how did you piece it together? How did you piece the chapters, we'll say, together?
Okay, then what I did is I took all the verses that I had written down, and my book is unique in a way because it talks about life from birth and then life issues in between, and it goes to death. So what I had to do is I had to take all the verses, sort them and organize them out, and then I have my chapters and labeled it with one word. And it starts with life, nature, emotion, and it goes all the way to happy, love, self, God, nation. And so I had to categorize that. So when I wanted to learn how to do the manuscript, I took a self-education course, did that, and then I put it all together, found my publisher, and that's how it came about. And it's probably like a 3-year period, and the book shows when the verse was written and kind of sometimes what inspired me to write it.
Oh, I love that. And before, we had a preliminary conversation before we jumped on the air, and I was wowed by a couple of poems. I asked you to dig up a few of them. And would you give us one that talks about life, sort of beginning anew? Would you recite that for us?
Okay. Life begins anew. It's already on my blog site, too, that I placed there. That's how it first started. I wanted to see how my readers enjoyed my writing. So I have Life Begins Anew. I watched the rain clean up the dirt left from the melting snow, and spring came forth. I see the crocus bloom amongst the cold ground, a sight for eyes to witness once again. I savor the scene in my mind this moment and realize that beauty comes when life begins anew.
I love that.
I live here in the winter snow, yeah. So when you see the crocus bloom, it kind of creates that life starts anew again.
Yeah, so we should tell the listeners you definitely live where there's snow because you live in the Minnesota area. And of course, I have lots of friends there, and I know as well, Carol, you get so much snow, and that really resonates. And I think it resonates with anyone because wherever you live, there is the changing of the guard, and life begins anew. And we should also tell people that, of course, they can get your book on Amazon, To Hear Your Voice, Written Verse of the 21st Century, Inspirational and Motivational, and your blog. Tell us where we can find your blog as well.
My blog is at carolkappas.blogspot.com, and that's where I first began my writings, and I started in 2011, and today it's 2020, and so it continued there, and some of the verses that are in the book were not on the blog, so I kind of pieced the book to where I think you would learn from. So I'm pretty happy with the choices that I made in the verses that are in the book.
Yeah. Again, you have such a creative mind, and it's interesting because of all the collection that you've pulled together, et cetera. And for a profession, I mean, you went into the dental business, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, Carol, we all have that kind of fear of the dentist. You would be super popular if you did some of your poetry, I think, for some of the people in the chair.
You are right. I did for a chapter on health, and there is the one on the teeth, and there's also on the mind, also on our grooming and emotional being.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, when I heard patient stories too that I'm in the dental office, then some of that is in the book also.
And you wrote a poem I thought was I think is just beautiful, especially the way you finish it. But you told me you wrote it in 1986, so I love it that you document it. You kept it where so many of us travel around, move around, or go through the various sections of our lives, and we lose some of the things that we've gathered. But you didn't do that. So tell us about your poem Memories. What inspired that, and then recite it for us if you would.
Okay, I wrote memories when I was dating a fella and he was working in another state, but then he became my husband and it's titled Memories, written in 1986. It goes like this. I spent the other evening thinking about you, and my did I feel so blue. Tears surfaced rushing down my face when reflections of you came into place. Being apart, I often realized your life with me was a wonderful surprise. How we cherished those happy moments together will stay with me now and forever. Yeah, and you talked about living in different areas. Yeah, it seemed like we kind of moved every 7 years because I did live in California and Texas and then came back here in Minnesota. So I did keep my files, and that file box went all over the place. Yeah,
I love that you
very
dragged all.
interesting life.
Yes, you dragged all of that with you, and look, who knew it? You came full circle, and it landed you to the point where you've got an audience that can be inspired and certainly motivated by it. What do you hope that the people listening, they pick up your book? What do you hope that they take away from reading your book?
I wanted them to have a happy life. I wrote it because I wanted them to have a better well-being of themselves. And my preface tells you the voice that I talk in, so I'm going to read this last paragraph. It was those quiet moments in the day where many divine aspirations came about, and I quickly had to jot them down so as not to lose them. I am an emotional, expressive writer that gets in the hearts and minds of people on their core being. The essence of nurturing the human being into full growth to prosperity and a meaningful life is truly important for everyone's emotional well-being. We all have a spirit within ourselves to accomplish what we were born to do. So as we live through our life, we always meet people. We always, there's a reason that we meet others. And I think it captures into our being at the end of our life. So I wanted people to live in hope, love, and peace. Most of my verses are on nature, peace, and love.
I like that. Nature, peace, and love. And you know that it's so tough. People have that, what I call, Carol, that mind trash. And sometimes it's so hard to shut that off. And reading your book, sitting in a quiet place and reflection. I mean, you really talk about that because you reflected throughout your whole life, it seems, right?
Yes, that's what I did. That's what's in the book, yeah. And people will leave. This is a 306-page book, so people are going to enjoy quite a few of the verses, and they're going to remember the powerful message that they read. And also, I write in a way that they feel like they're with me when I talk about something, too.
Yeah, and I felt like that certainly in both of the poems that we heard from you. Both of them had a very clear meaning, and I think we can all understand about starting anew and memories and how we feel about somebody, and then how that takes you through a relationship. And again, the book is called To Hear Your Voice, Written Verse of the 21st Century, Inspirational and Motivational. Carol Kappas, what a delight to have you on this show. Again, thank you so much for joining us on Author's Corner.
Well, thank you so much. You made my day. Every day is a new day, and I'm almost like a self-made philosopher, and I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy talking with you. It's a pleasure to know you too as an author. And I just want to thank you again for taking this time. And I want to thank my readers for enjoying my book. And it's a valuable book that I'm going to make sure that you really enjoy it.
Thank you. Some great parting thoughts for sure. And thanks to everybody for listening.